Captain Ryan Blake couldn't believe where he was standing. Just 3 months ago, he was fighting in the trenches of a dying planet, watching his friends fall one by one. Now he stood in the most beautiful place he had ever seen, a crystal palace that seemed to be made of pure light itself. The war had been brutal. 3 different alien races were about to destroy each other, and billions of innocent lives hung in the balance. Ryan had discovered something terrible. A group of corrupt leaders from all 3 sides were secretly working together. They wanted the war to continue because they were making huge profits from selling weapons to everyone. When Ryan exposed their dirty secrets, everything changed overnight. The real leaders of each race realized they had been tricked. The war stopped immediately, and peace talks began. Ryan had single-handedly saved 3 entire civilizations from destroying themselves. The Zephyrians were so grateful that they offered him their highest honor. He could choose any one of their 7 royal daughters to be his companion. This wasn't just about marriage. Whoever he chose would be his guide to understanding their advanced society and all its incredible technology. Standing in that massive crystal hall, Ryan felt tiny. The ceiling was so high he could barely see it, and everything around him glowed with a soft, warm light. Hundreds of Zephyrian nobles filled the room, their tall, graceful forms creating a sea of shimmering robes and curious faces. Then he saw them, the 7 princesses standing in a perfect line before the throne. 6 of them were absolutely stunning. Their skin seemed to glow from within. Their hair flowed like liquid starlight, and their faces were so perfect they looked like living sculptures. Each one was tall and elegant, moving with the kind of grace that made Ryan feel clumsy just watching them. The crowd clearly expected him to choose one of these 6 beauties. He could hear whispers in the alien language, and even without understanding the words, he could tell people were placing bets on which gorgeous princess would catch his eye. But then Ryan noticed the 7th princess. She stood slightly apart from her sisters, and everything about her was different. Where they were tall, she was shorter, almost human height. Her skin didn't glow like theirs. Instead, it had strange, dark markings that looked almost like tattoos. Her hair was darker too, and her face was more angular, less traditionally beautiful by their standards. What really caught Ryan's attention, though, were her eyes. While her sisters looked at him with polite interest or practiced smiles, this one looked at him with genuine curiosity. Her dark eyes seemed to see right through him, like she was reading his soul. There was intelligence there, and something else, a kind of sadness that made his heart ache. The Zephyrian Chancellor stepped forward, his voice echoing through the great hall. He began introducing each princess, listing their accomplishments and qualities. The first 6 were praised for their beauty, their diplomatic skills, their ability to sing songs that could make flowers bloom, and their mastery of elegant dances. When he reached the 7th princess, his voice changed slightly. "And this is Princess Zara," he said, his tone more formal, less enthusiastic. "She is learned in ancient texts and scientific matters." That was it. No mention of beauty. No list of social accomplishments. Just a brief, almost dismissive introduction. Ryan could see how this affected her. The way her shoulders tensed slightly. How she looked down at the floor for just a moment. The Chancellor gestured grandly toward the 6 beautiful princesses. "Hero Ryan Blake, you may take your time to consider your choice. Each of these lovely daughters of our realm would be honored to serve as your guide and companion." Ryan noticed something else then. When the Chancellor spoke about the other princesses, they smiled and nodded gracefully. But when he looked at Princess Zara, she seemed to shrink back slightly, as if she didn't expect to be chosen and was trying to make herself invisible. That's when something clicked in Ryan's mind. Throughout his military career, he had learned to trust his instincts. In battle, the obvious choice wasn't always the right choice. Sometimes the quiet soldier in the corner turned out to be the bravest. Sometimes the weapon that looked less impressive was actually the most reliable. Looking at Princess Zara again, Ryan saw something the others missed. While her sister stood perfectly posed, she was genuinely engaged with what was happening. When he had entered the hall, she had been the only one really watching him, studying his reactions, trying to understand who he was as a person rather than just admiring his heroic reputation. The silence in the hall stretched longer as everyone waited for his decision. Ryan could feel hundreds of eyes on him. The 6 beautiful princesses maintained their graceful poses, probably confident that one of them would be chosen. After all, who wouldn't want the most beautiful companion possible? But Ryan had learned something important during the war. Real beauty came from the inside. The most attractive people he had met were often cruel or selfish when it mattered most. Meanwhile, some of his closest friends, the ones who had his back in the worst battles, weren't necessarily the most handsome, but they had hearts of gold. He took a step forward, and the crowd held its breath. Then he did something that shocked everyone in the room. He walked past all 6 of the gorgeous princesses and stopped directly in front of Princess Zara. "I choose Princess Zara," he said clearly, his voice carrying across the silent hall. The reaction was immediate and dramatic. Gasps echoed from every corner of the room. Some nobles started whispering frantically to each other. Even the other princesses looked stunned, not angry or jealous, just completely surprised. Princess Zara herself looked like she had been struck by lightning. Her dark eyes went wide, and she stared at Ryan as if she couldn't believe what she had heard. "Me," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Yes, you," Ryan said with a smile. "If you'll have me as your companion." The Chancellor looked flustered for the first time since Ryan had met him. Are you certain? Captain Blake, perhaps you would like more time to consider? The other princesses have many wonderful qualities that I'm certain," Ryan interrupted. Politely but firmly, "Princess Zara is my choice." For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Princess Zara stepped forward, her chin raised with sudden dignity. Despite her obvious shock, she managed a small, genuine smile that transformed her entire face. "I accept the honor, Captain Blake," she said, her voice stronger now. "I will do my best to guide you and help you understand our ways." As the formal ceremony concluded and the crowd began to disperse, still buzzing with shocked conversations, Ryan caught Princess Zara looking at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. It was gratitude, yes, but also something deeper, a kind of wonder, as if she was seeing him as clearly as he had seen her. What neither of them knew was that this single choice would change not just their lives, but the fate of the entire galaxy. Sometimes the most important decisions are the ones that feel right in your heart, even when your head can't explain why. And as they walked out of that crystal hall together, Ryan Blake had no idea that he had just chosen the most powerful being in the known universe. Walking out of the Crystal Palace felt like stepping into a dream. Princess Zara moved beside Ryan in complete silence, her steps careful and uncertain. He could feel the tension radiating from her small frame as they made their way through the corridors filled with staring nobles and whispering servants. Ryan had expected some reaction to his choice, but this was beyond anything he had imagined. Every person they passed stopped what they were doing to stare. Some looked confused, others seemed almost offended, and a few appeared genuinely concerned. It was like he had just announced he preferred eating mud over chocolate cake. "Princess," Ryan said quietly as they walked, "I hope you don't think I chose you as some kind of joke or dare." Zara glanced up at him, her dark eyes searching his face for any sign of mockery. "Honestly, Captain Blake, I'm not sure what to think. Nobody has ever chosen me for anything important. My sisters have always been the ones picked for ceremonies, diplomatic missions, and arranged marriages. I usually spend my time in the library or the old ruins outside the city." The ruins? Ryan's interest was immediately sparked. During his travels across the galaxy, he had developed a fascination with ancient civilizations and their technologies. What kind of ruins? For the first time since leaving the throne room, Zara's face lit up with genuine enthusiasm. "Oh, they're incredible. Structures that are thousands of years old, built with techniques we still don't fully understand. The mathematical precision is absolutely perfect, and some of the materials used don't even exist in our current periodic table." As she spoke, something amazing happened. The shy, uncertain princess began to disappear, replaced by someone passionate and brilliant. Her eyes sparkled with excitement, Her hands moved expressively as she described complex architectural features, and her voice grew stronger and more confident. Most people find my interests boring. She continued, then caught herself and looked embarrassed. I'm sorry. I'm probably boring you too. Are you kidding? Ryan stopped walking and turned to face her fully. That's fascinating. I've seen ruins on dozens of planets, but I've never met anyone who actually understood how they were built. How did you learn so much about ancient architecture? Zara stared at him in amazement. You actually want to hear about this? I really do. In fact, would you be willing to show me these ruins sometime? I'd love to see them. The transformation in Princess Zara was remarkable. The timid girl who had stood apart from her sisters was revealing herself to be someone entirely different, someone with depth, intelligence, and passion that her sisters simply didn't possess. Over the next few days, Ryan discovered just how wrong everyone had been about the ugly princess. Their first official tour of the Zephyrian capital turned into an adventure he would never forget. Instead of taking him to the usual tourist spots that visiting dignitaries saw, Zara led him through hidden passages and forgotten sections of the city. She showed him workshops where master craftsmen created impossible works of art using techniques passed down through generations. She introduced him to scholars who were working on problems that had puzzled scientists for centuries. The thing is, Zara explained as they sat in a quiet garden overlooking the city, most visitors only see the pretty parts of our civilization, the shiny buildings, the formal ceremonies, the impressive technology. But the really interesting stuff is hidden away where most people never think to look. Ryan was beginning to understand that Princess Zara herself was exactly like that, the most interesting person in the royal family, hidden away where most people never thought to look. What impressed him most wasn't just her intelligence, though. That was extraordinary. It was her kindness. During their walks through the city, she knew the names of street cleaners and shopkeepers. She stopped to help an elderly alien fix his broken cart, getting her royal robes dirty without a second thought. She shared her lunch with hungry children and always had time to listen to people's problems. Why are you so different from your sisters? Ryan asked one evening as they watched the twin suns set over the crystal spires of the city. Zara was quiet. For a long moment. I think it's because nobody expected anything from me, she said finally. My sisters were raised to be perfect princesses, beautiful, charming, accomplished in all the right ways. But since I wasn't considered beautiful enough for diplomatic marriages or social events, I was left alone to pursue my own interests. I got to be myself instead of what others wanted me to be. And what did you discover about yourself? That I love learning things that matter. Then I care more about understanding how the universe works than about looking pretty at parties. Then I'd rather spend time with genuine people than with those who only care about status and appearances. She paused, then added quietly, I also discovered that I'm much lonelier than I pretended to be. Ryan felt something tighten in his chest at those words. You don't have to be lonely anymore. She turned to look at him, and he saw something new in her eyes. Hope mixed with fear. Captain Blake Ryan, why did you really choose me? And please don't say it was because you saw something special in my eyes. I need to know the truth. Ryan considered his answer carefully. Do you want the honest truth? I chose you because you were the only one in that room who looked at me like I was a person instead of a prize to be won. Your sisters saw the famous hero Captain Blake. You saw Ryan, just a guy who's tired of war and wants to understand how people can build something beautiful instead of destroying it. And now, do you regret your choice? Ryan smiled. Are you serious? These have been the best days I've had in years. You've shown me wonders I never could have imagined, taught me things that will change how I see the universe, and treated me like a friend instead of a celebrity. How could I possibly regret choosing the most remarkable person I've ever met? For the first time since he had known her, Princess Zara truly smiled, not the polite, careful smile she wore in public, but a radiant expression that transformed her entire face. In that moment, Ryan realized something that would have shocked the entire Zephyrian court. Princess Zara wasn't the ugly duckling of the royal family. She was absolutely beautiful, just in a way that was real and deep and genuine, rather than perfect and artificial. Her beauty came from her brilliant mind, her compassionate heart, and her authentic spirit. But even as their friendship deepened into something more meaningful, strange things were beginning to happen around them, things that would soon reveal that Princess Zara was hiding secrets that even she didn't fully understand. 3 weeks had passed since Ryan made his surprising choice, and life at the Zephyrian Palace had settled into a wonderful routine. Every morning, he and Princess Zara would explore a different part of their vast civilization, and every evening, they would sit together discussing what they had learned. Today was different, though. Zara had been unusually quiet during breakfast, and Ryan could tell something was bothering her. "There's something I want to show you," she said finally, her voice filled with nervous excitement. "But it's not exactly approved by the Royal Council." Ryan raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean? Remember those ruins I told you about? Well, there's a section that's been declared off-limits to everyone, including members of the royal family. But I've been sneaking out there at night for years, and I've discovered things that I think you need to see." The thought of breaking royal rules would have worried most people, but Ryan had spent his military career learning when rules needed to be bent for the greater good. "What kind of things?" Zara's eyes sparkled with the same excitement he had seen when she first talked about ancient architecture, inscriptions that don't match any known Zephyrian language, technology that's more advanced than anything we use today, and symbols that keep appearing in my dreams, even though I've never seen them anywhere else. That last part caught Ryan's attention. "You're having dreams about symbols from the ruins?" "Strange dreams," Zara admitted. "Sometimes I dream about events that supposedly happened thousands of years ago, but they feel so real, like I'm remembering them instead of imagining them. I see great battles in space, cities floating between stars, and technologies that could reshape entire planets." Ryan felt a chill run down his spine. During his travels, he had encountered enough mysteries to know that dreams like these were rarely just dreams. "When did these dreams start?" "About 2 weeks ago," Zara said quietly. "Right around the time we started spending so much time together." They looked at each other in silence, both sensing that something important was happening, even if they couldn't understand what it was. That night, Zara led Ryan through secret passages he never would have discovered on his own. The palace was much larger than it appeared from the outside, with hidden corridors and forgotten chambers that seemed to go on forever. "How do you know about all these secret ways?" Ryan whispered as they crept through a narrow tunnel lit only by Zara's small handheld light. "I've been exploring since I was a child," she replied. "When you're the princess nobody pays attention to, you have a lot of freedom to wander around unnoticed." Finally, they emerged from the palace onto a hillside overlooking the capital city. In the distance, barely visible in the starlight, Ryan could make out the silhouettes of ancient structures rising from the landscape. Like sleeping giants, the ruins were even more impressive up close than Zara had described. Massive stones fitted together so perfectly that you couldn't slide a piece of paper between them. Arches that seemed to defy gravity, and everywhere, carved symbols that looked both alien and strangely familiar. "This is incredible," Ryan breathed, running his hand along one of the carved walls. "How old did you say these were?" "According to official records, about 3,000 years old. But I think they might be much older than that." Zara led him deeper into the complex, her light dancing across more symbols and carvings. "The thing is, some of the technology I've found here is more advanced than what we use today." "How's that possible? Shouldn't we have progressed beyond what our ancestors could do?" Ryan had to admit it was a good question. In his experience, civilizations generally improved their technology over time, not the other way around. They reached what appeared to be the heart of the complex, a circular chamber with a domed ceiling, covered in intricate carvings. In the center of the room stood a pedestal holding a crystal unlike anything Ryan had ever seen. It was completely clear, but somehow it seemed to pulse with its own inner light. "I've never been able to figure out what this is," Zara said, approaching the crystal cautiously. "Every time I come here, I feel drawn to touch it, but I've never been brave enough." As she spoke, the crystal began to glow brighter, responding to her presence in a way that made Ryan's skin prickle with anticipation. "Sarah," he said carefully, "I think you should step back." But she seemed mesmerized by the crystal's increasing brightness. "It's never done this before," she whispered. "It's almost like it recognizes me." Before Ryan could stop her, she reached out and placed her palm against the crystal surface. The reaction was immediate and terrifying. Light exploded from the crystal, filling the entire chamber with blinding radiance. The carved symbols on the walls began to glow as well, pulsing in rhythm with some invisible heartbeat. And from somewhere deep within the ruins came a low, thrumming sound that seemed to make the very air vibrate. "Sarah," Ryan shouted. But she couldn't hear him over the noise. She was standing perfectly still, her hand still pressed against the crystal, her eyes wide and unfocused as if she was seeing something far away. Then, just as suddenly as it had begun, everything stopped. The light faded, the symbols went dark, and the thrumming sound died away. Sarah swayed on her feet, and Ryan caught her just as her legs gave out. "What happened?" she gasped, looking round the chamber in confusion. "Did you see that?" "See what?" Ryan helped her sit down on a piece of fallen stone. "The whole place lit up like a festival, and you looked like you were in some kind of trance." Sarah shook her head slowly. I saw things, memories that aren't mine. A great empire that spanned the galaxy, a war that nearly destroyed everything, and a woman who looked exactly like me, but she was powerful beyond imagination." Ryan felt that chill again, stronger this time. "What kind of memories?" "I saw this same chamber, but it was new and perfect. There were people here, thousands of them, all looking up at someone standing where I just stood. And the person they were looking at." Sarah paused, her voice becoming almost a whisper. "She had my face, but she was beautiful, really beautiful. Not like me at all." "Sarah, listen to me," Ryan said urgently. "You're beautiful, but more importantly, what you just experienced isn't normal. That crystal responded to you specifically. Those symbols lit up when you touched it. Whatever's happening here, it's connected to you personally." Over the next few days, more strange things began to happen. Ancient security systems in the palace that had been dormant for centuries suddenly activated. Whenever Sarah walked past them, artifacts in the Royal Museum began to glow faintly when she entered the room. Most disturbing of all, she started having more vivid dreams, not just about symbols now, but about entire events, complete conversations, and people whose names she somehow knew despite never having met them. "I'm scared," she admitted to Ryan one evening as they sat in their favorite garden. "What if I'm losing my mind? What if all this stress about being chosen and having new responsibilities is making me imagine things?" Ryan took her hand, noting how cold it was despite the warm evening air. "You're not imagining anything. I've seen the evidence with my own eyes. Something is happening to you. Something connected to those ruins and your family's history. But whatever it is, you're not facing it alone." As if responding to their conversation, the palace lights flickered for just a moment, and somewhere in the distance, they heard the faint sound of ancient machinery humming to life. Princess Sarah was changing, and with each passing day, it became more clear that the shy, overlooked princess was not who she appeared to be. The question was, what was she becoming, and what did it mean for both of them? Neither Ryan nor Sarah realized it yet, but they were about to discover that the greatest love stories often begin with the greatest mysteries, and that sometimes the most important truths are hidden in the places no one thinks to look. The accident happened on a Tuesday morning, exactly 1 month after Ryan had made his choice. He and Princess Sarah were exploring the deepest levels of the Royal Archives, a place so old and forgotten that dust covered everything like a thick blanket. "I still can't believe the council gave us permission to come down here," Ryan said, running his flashlight beam across rows of ancient storage containers. "When you asked yesterday, I thought they were going to say no for sure." Sarah looked puzzled too. "Actually, that surprised me as well. Normally they're very protective of the old records. But when I mentioned we wanted to research the connection between my dreams and the ruins, Chancellor Devon immediately agreed. He even seemed eager for us to explore. The archives were unlike anything Ryan had ever seen. Layer upon layer of crystalline storage devices stretched as far as their lights could reach. Some were clearly ancient, their surfaces clouded with age, while others looked more recent. The air down here felt different too, thick and heavy, as if it held the weight of thousands of years of secrets. "Look at this," Zara called out from across the chamber. She was standing in front of a section that looked much older than the rest. The crystals here were different, larger, more complex, and they seemed to pulse with a faint inner light that reminded Ryan uncomfortably of the crystal they had found in the ruins. "Should we be touching those?" Ryan asked, moving closer. "They look important." "Everything down here is important," Zara replied, but she was already reaching toward one of the larger crystals. "These look like they might contain really old records, maybe something about the dreams I've been having." As her fingers got closer to the crystal, it began to glow brighter, just like the one in the ruins had done. Ryan felt that familiar chill of worry. Double quotes Zara. "Maybe we should be more careful. Remember what happened last time you touched one of these things." But she was already committed to her action. "It'll be fine. I'll just barely touch it to see if..." The moment her skin made contact with the crystal's surface, everything went wrong. The crystal didn't just glow. It exploded with light so bright that Ryan had to cover his eyes and turn away. But this time, the reaction was much stronger than what had happened in the ruins. The light seemed to spread from crystal to crystal, racing across the entire archive chamber like wildfire. And then came the sounds. Not the simple thrumming they had heard before, but voices. Hundreds of voices speaking in languages Ryan had never heard, yet somehow he could understand every word. They were talking about events from thousands of years ago, describing battles and celebrations, scientific discoveries and terrible losses. But most shocking of all was what the voices were saying about Princess Zara. "The Empress has returned," one voice said clearly. "The bloodline of the Star Throne lives again." "Empress Vera has awakened," said another. "The ancient prophecies are fulfilled. She bears the mark of the royal house," a third voice added. "The true heir has come home." Ryan spun round to look at Zara, but what he saw made his heart stop. She was standing perfectly still in the center of the light show, but she was changing before his eyes. The strange markings on her skin that everyone had always called ugly were now glowing with brilliant patterns of light. Her hair seemed to move as if touched by an invisible wind, and her eyes had become completely white, filled with swirling energy. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of centuries. "I remember now," she said, but it didn't sound like the Zara he knew. "I remember everything." The lights continued to dance around them, and suddenly the air filled with images, three-dimensional pictures that showed events from long ago. Ryan saw massive space battles, beautiful cities floating among the stars, and technologies that made current Zephyrian science look primitive. But the most incredible images were of a woman who looked exactly like Princess Zara, except this woman was clearly the most important person in the galaxy. She commanded fleets of starships, made decisions that affected billions of lives, and wielded powers that seemed almost magical. "That's Empress Vera," Zara said, her voice still strange and distant. "She ruled the greatest empire the galaxy has ever known. She brought peace to 1,000 worlds and stopped a war that would have destroyed everything." "Zara," Ryan said carefully, "how do you know all this?" She turned to look at him, and for a moment her eyes cleared, showing the confused, frightened girl he had come to care about so deeply. "Because I am her, Ryan. I'm not just Princess Zara, the overlooked daughter of the royal family. I'm the reincarnation of Empress Vera herself." The statement was so impossible that Ryan's mind struggled to process it. That can't be real. Reincarnation is just a story people tell. It's not actually. But before he could finish his thought, more images appeared around them. These showed the royal family from when Zara was born. He watched as the palace's most powerful advisors examined the newborn princess, saw the shock on their faces when they realized who she really was, and heard their whispered conversations about keeping the truth secret until the right time. "They knew," Zara said, her voice becoming stronger and more confident. The Royal Council has known since the day I was born that I was different. The markings on my skin, the way ancient technology responds to me, even the reason I was always drawn to the ruins. It's all because I'm not really their daughter at all. Ryan felt like the ground was shifting under his feet. If that's true, then why didn't they tell you? Why let you grow up thinking you were the ugly, unwanted princess? More images provided the answer. He saw meetings where the council debated whether to reveal the truth, watched as they decided to wait and see if the young princess would naturally develop the wisdom and character needed to handle such enormous responsibility. They were testing me, Zara realized, her voice filled with growing understanding. All those years of being ignored and overlooked weren't punishment. They were preparation. They wanted to see if I would become wise and compassionate despite having no power or status. They needed to know if I could be trusted with the kind of authority that Empress Vera once held. The final series of images showed why this test had been so important. Deep in space, something dark and terrible was stirring. The same enemy that Empress Vera had defeated 3,000 years ago. It had been growing stronger in the darkness, waiting for the right moment to return and finish what it had started. The war isn't really over, Zara said, and now her voice carried both sadness and determination. Empress Vera didn't destroy the enemy completely. She only pushed it back, forced it to hide and wait, and now it's coming back, stronger than ever. Ryan stared at the images of approaching darkness and felt a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature in the archive chamber. What does this mean for us, for you? Zara looked at him with eyes that now held the weight of ancient memories and terrible knowledge. It means that the shy princess you chose as your companion is about to become the most powerful person in the galaxy. And it means that the conspiracy you uncovered, the war you prevented, none of that was an accident. What do you mean? We're being tested too, Ryan. The enemy has been working for decades to weaken the galaxy's defenses, to make sure that when Empress Vera returned, she would be alone and vulnerable. But your actions prove that there are still heroes willing to fight for what's right, even when it costs them everything. As the lights finally began to fade and the ancient voices grew quiet, Ryan found himself looking at a completely different person than the one he had walked into the archives with. Princess Zara was still there, but now she was something much more, someone destined to lead a battle that would determine the fate of every living being in the galaxy. So what happens now? He asked quietly. Zara smiled, and for a moment she looked like the girl he had fallen in love with. Now we prepare for the greatest challenge either of us has ever faced, because ready or not, Empress Vera has returned, and the final battle is about to begin. The transformation began that very night. Ryan woke up to find their shared quarters filled with a soft, pulsing light that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Princess Zara was standing by the window, but she was no longer the person he had fallen asleep beside. The strange markings on her skin were now clearly visible as intricate patterns of light that flowed across her body like living art. Her hair moved with its own energy, and when she turned to look at him, her eyes held the depth of someone who had lived for thousands of years. "Don't be afraid," she said, her voice carrying harmonics that seemed to resonate in his chest. "I'm still me. I'm still the girl who loves ancient ruins and gets excited about mathematical equations. But now I'm also someone else, someone I was always meant to be." Ryan sat up slowly, trying to process what he was seeing. "How do you feel? Does it hurt?" Zara smiled, and in that smile he saw both the shy princess he had chosen and the empress she was becoming. "It doesn't hurt. It feels like coming home after being lost for a very long time. All those years of feeling like I didn't fit in, like I was different and wrong. Now I understand why." As she spoke, more changes became apparent. She was taller now, more graceful, and there was a presence about her that filled the room with quiet authority. But most remarkably, her face had changed in subtle ways that made her absolutely beautiful, not in an artificial way. Her sisters were beautiful, but with a deeper, more genuine beauty that came from wisdom and strength. "The real question," she continued, moving away from the window to sit beside him, "is what this means for you. Because now that I know the truth about myself, I also know the truth about why you're here." Ryan felt that familiar chill. "What do you mean?" Zara took his hands in hers, and he could feel a gentle warmth flowing from her touch. "Your arrival here wasn't an accident. Ryan, that conspiracy you discovered, the war you prevented, it was all part of a much larger plan. The enemy has been working for decades to weaken the galaxy's defenses, but they needed to make sure that when I awakened, I would be alone and vulnerable. But I stopped their plan," Ryan said. Confused, "I exposed their conspiracy and ended the war." "Exactly, and in doing so, you prove that you're the person destiny has been preparing to stand beside me in the battle to come. Your heroism, your ability to see truth even when it's hidden, your choice to value inner beauty over outward appearance, all of it was preparing you for this moment." Ryan's mind raced as he tried to understand the implications. "Are you saying that I was somehow chosen for this? That my entire life has been leading up to meeting you?" "I'm saying that the universe has a way of bringing the right people together at the right time," Zara replied. "Empress Vera didn't rule alone 3,000 years ago. She had a partner, someone who stood beside her and helped her make the decisions that shaped the galaxy. Someone who saw her not as a powerful empress, but as a person worth loving." The weight of what she was suggesting hit Ryan like a physical blow. "You're talking about a war that could involve the entire galaxy. Billions of lives at stake, technologies and powers I can't even imagine. How could someone like me possibly be helpful in something that big?" Zara's expression grew serious, because the enemy we're facing isn't just powerful, it's ancient and clever. It's had thousands of years to study how to defeat armies and conquer planets. But what it doesn't understand is the power of connection between people who truly care about each other. That's what stopped it before, and that's what will stop it again. Over the next few days, more of the truth revealed itself. The Zephyrian Royal Council, who had seemed so formal and distant before, were actually part of an ancient organization dedicated to protecting the galaxy from the returning threat. They had been preparing for this moment for generations, keeping the secret of Zara's true identity while watching for signs that the enemy was stirring again. "We knew that Empress Vera would return," Chancellor Devon explained during an emergency meeting in the palace's most secure chamber. "The prophecies were very clear about that. But we also knew that she would need time to remember who she was, and to find the strength necessary for what's coming." "What exactly is coming?" Ryan asked. "You keep talking about this enemy, but nobody has explained what we're actually facing." The Chancellor activated a holographic display that filled the room with images of space, but not the peaceful, star-filled space Ryan was used to seeing. This space was twisted and wrong, filled with ships that looked like they were made of living shadow and planets that had been drained of all life and light. "The Devourers," Chancellor Devon said grimly. "They consume entire civilizations, not just to conquer them, but to absorb their life force and grow stronger. 3,000 years ago, they had already destroyed hundreds of worlds, before Empress Vera managed to stop them." "How did she stop them?" Ryan asked. Though he wasn't sure, he wanted to know the answer. "By sacrificing herself," Zara said quietly. "Empress Vera used her own life force to power a barrier that pushed the Devourers back into the dark spaces between galaxies. But barriers don't last forever, especially when there's nothing feeding them new energy, and now the barrier is failing." The Chancellor continued. "Our deep space monitors have detected the first scout ships probing our outer systems. We estimate that we have perhaps 6 months before the main invasion force arrives." Ryan felt overwhelmed by the scope of what they were describing. 6 months to prepare for a war against enemies that destroyed hundreds of worlds. How is that even possible? "Because this time, we're not starting from scratch," Zara said, her voice filled with growing confidence. "Empress Vera spent her last years before the sacrifice hiding weapons and technologies across the galaxy, entire fleets of ships waiting in hidden bases, defensive systems built into planets that look like natural formations, and most importantly, allies, species, and civilizations that have been preparing for this day for generations. But the Chancellor added seriously, none of these preparations will matter if Empress Vera cannot access her full power. And she cannot do that while she's still thinking of herself as princess. Zara, the overlooked daughter of a royal family, all eyes turned to Zara, who stood up and moved to the center of the room. As she did, the very air seemed to change around her, becoming charged with energy that made Ryan's skin tingle. Then it's time to stop being Princess Zara, she said, her voice carrying the authority of someone born to command galaxies. I remember now, not just who I was, but who I am. I'm Empress Vera, protector of 1,000 worlds, and I will not let the Devourers destroy what took millennia to build. The transformation was complete now. Standing before Ryan was no longer the shy, uncertain princess he had chosen. This was someone who could make decisions that affected billions of lives. Someone who understood technologies that could reshape reality itself. Someone who had the power to stand against forces that could consume entire star systems. But when she looked at him, her eyes still held the warmth and intelligence that had first drawn him to her. The question now, she said, extending her hand toward him, is whether you're ready to stand beside me in the greatest battle the galaxy has ever known. Because I can face the Devourers, I can command fleets and wield ancient weapons, but I cannot do it alone. I need someone who sees me as I truly am, not just as an empress, but as the person who loves ruins and mathematical equations and quiet gardens, where we can watch the stars. Ryan looked at her outstretched hand and thought about everything that had brought him to this moment. A month ago, he had been a tired soldier who just wanted the fighting to stop. Now he was being asked to help save the entire galaxy from an enemy beyond imagination. But when he looked into Zara's eyes, Empress Vera's eyes, he saw the same person, who had shared her lunch with hungry children and gotten her royal robes. Dirty helping an elderly alien fix his cart. Power hadn't changed who she was at heart. I told you once that I chose you because you saw me as a person instead of a prize, Ryan said, taking her hand. That hasn't changed, Empress or Princess. You're still the most remarkable person I've ever met, if you'll have me as your partner. In this, then yes, I'm ready. As their hands touched, Ryan felt a surge of energy flow between them, and suddenly he could see everything she saw, the hidden fleets waiting for her command. The defensive systems built into 100 worlds. The network of allies who had been preparing for this moment for generations. But most importantly, he could feel the connection between them. The bond that had started when he chose the overlooked princess and had now become something that could help save the galaxy itself. The greatest love stories, Ryan realized, aren't just about two people finding each other. Sometimes they're about two people finding the strength to face impossible odds together and discovering that love isn't just an emotion, it's the most powerful force in the universe.